You are about to meet the winner of the 2020 PleinAir Salon and a great landscape painter, Dave Santillanes. I almost called you Dan. I don't know why I did that. Hey, Dave, welcome.
Hey, how you doing? That's
I'm
okay. My
terrific.
brother's name's Dan, so my mom used to do that all the time. So I'm used to that.
Well, I guess I need more coffee. What can I tell you?
Yeah.
So, man, congratulations.
Oh, thanks so much. We were completely floored. And it was it's such a huge honor. And I think I was talking to you earlier. I was overcome just because when you win an award like that, it's so huge. You start to think of everything you've been through up to that point, and it all comes together at once. And it was just an incredible moment for us.
Well, I'm going to share that moment right now. Hang on. All right. Well, I guess that pretty much leaves us with the winner. And I think it's probably, if everybody's keeping track. So the winner of the $15,000 grand prize, Dave Santillanes. Wow, let's get him on the screen. Oh, a little celebration going on. Oh. All right. Well, Dave, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Well done.
You're very welcome.
I'm stunned. This is such an honor. I don't know what to say. Speechless.
So we've been conniving, and unfortunately, you blew our plans. We had someone ready to deliver a big check to you at your home in Colorado.
Oh, no way.
We've been quietly working with your wife in the background, and so she's known all along.
No,
no way.
And but unfortunately, we were not able to get the big check to you, but it will be hand delivered when you get back to your house, and so we'll get some pictures of you with your big check, and that'll be pretty cool. So congratulations again. Any final thoughts?
Oh my gosh, I'm just so thankful to you, Eric Rhoads, and the PleinAir Salon. My wife, Heather, who's she does everything. It's just, I'm honored. Thank you. Brings back emotions right now.
Yeah, well, it's a pretty neat thing to get recognition. You know, we all want recognition for our. How long you've been painting? Forever, right?
Oh, well, painting for over 20 years.
Yeah.
And you know, it's been awesome, but there are those struggles. There are some downtimes too, and you push through it. You know, every artist goes through periods of rejection and acceptance, and I think you just stick to your guns and power through that. And then it culminates in moments like that.
Did you ever really think you had a chance of winning the PleinAir Salon? I know you entered many times.
Yeah, I've entered a lot, and you know, I never thought winning was possible, and I don't know that that's the goal. I think ultimately, I think consistently in getting in the show was validation for me, validation enough. Winning was bonus. I think it was really just getting in the show and being in the top 20. Well, I heard I was in the top 20, and that was enough of an award for me. But then to find out I won the big prize was huge. And like I said, it brings back all of those moments of struggle, because it increases the significance of the big award.
Yeah. Well, you know, the nice thing about these competitions is they help you get your head in the game. They help you, you know, if you are competing, you're asking yourself constantly, is it good enough? Can I make it better? And what's happening is it's elevating you because you know you're putting yourself out in front of other people.
Yeah, for sure. And I think too, and I mentioned sticking to your guns. I think I've had paintings get rejected from one show and win awards in another show. And they're paintings that even when they face a certain amount of rejection, if you believe in a piece and you think it's good, don't hold back from entering it in other shows that perhaps it, you know, don't take that rejection personal, I guess, is what my advice would be to other people.
Well, as you know, we have a lot of gallery people who judge the show, oftentimes other artists, sometimes museum people. And I've seen somebody enter a painting 2 or 3 or 4 times, and it didn't appeal to those judges. And then one day, one judge sees it and says, this is a winner.
Yeah.
So everybody has a differing opinion. The other thing that has happened is we've seen numerous times artists get discovered by the judges, so the judges will contact us and they'll say, hey, I need to know the name of this particular artist, this image, because I'd like to invite that person into my gallery. And we'll say, well, let's wait till the competition is over. We'll get their permission, and then we'll do that, because we want to make sure we're honoring everybody's privacy. Yeah. But so there's a lot of benefits that come from these things.
Oh yeah, there's a huge amount. And, I think, one of the huge benefits is putting yourself out there, whether it wins an award or not. Having the courage to do that, I think, is huge. And it makes you push yourself to get better, because any artist can paint and stash their paintings in their studio, never to be seen. But if you're putting it out there, you're opening yourself up to a little bit of critiquing from the public, which I think is perfectly normal.
Yeah. And
it gives you thick skin, which
you need.
All artists need that.
That's right. Well, Dave, we're going to come back to you in a minute. Before we go, tell us what you're going to do for us today.
Well, I've got a plein air painting that I did a few weeks ago, just as fall was starting to come in. And it was a demo I did for a workshop, but I liked the scene, and I wanted to develop it into a studio study. And that's generally how I work. I'll take a plein air painting, and then I'll take it into the studio, use photographs, the plein air painting, and develop a studio study where I kind of work out design and create the story that I want to create. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'll be talking about atmospheric things. And I got a head start on it this morning, just so I could hopefully try and finish it in the 45 minutes that I'll have to paint. But I'll be talking about atmospheric elements, design elements, things like that.
Okay, terrific. All right, so we'll have you back in just a minute. You can adjust your camera, and we'll be back. All right. Yeah. Okay, so our guest today is PleinAir Salon 2020 winner Dave Santillanes. We had another big event happened on Saturday night. We had the artist and selfie competition. But first, I didn't even say who I was. If you happen to be watching this and you don't know anything about this, you just discovered it. My name is Eric Rhoads. I'm the publisher and founder of PleinAir Magazine and Fine Art Connoisseur Magazine. We have Disneyland for artists. We have 4 newsletters: Fine Art Today, PleinAir Today, Realism Today, American Watercolor. We have retreats for artists, the Publishers Invitational in the Adirondacks, and Fall Color Week, which is in a different place typically every year. We also have the PleinAir Convention. We have PleinAir Live virtual convention. We have the Figurative Art Convention and Expo. We have Realism Live, our virtual convention, which we just finished on Saturday night. After it was a 5-day long. I'll talk about that in a minute. And we have 3 different video brands that produce over 30 videos a year, and we're putting samples of those videos out every day at 3 p.m. on Facebook and YouTube. And let me just show you today at 3 p.m. we have Dina Peterson, and she's going to do Portraits Van Gogh style. That's at 3 p.m. Today on YouTube or Facebook, and you can just go to Streamline Art Video and to find it. Now, Dina Peterson's story is interesting because Dina was brought in to be one of the painters who animated an entire film called Loving Vincent. And Loving Vincent, they found painters who they liked and had the chops and impressionism. And then what they did is they all studied together and they trained on how Van Gogh painted. And as a result, she painted hundreds of paintings for slides or for animation inside this movie. And she has 2 different videos. One is called Loving Van Gogh and how to paint like Vincent van Gogh and the things that she learned. Nobody, of course, can paint like Vincent van Gogh. Vincent van Gogh is his own thing, but she talks about what she learned there. And then she has this portrait video, Portraits Van Gogh style, and what she learned. And that's what you're going to see today at 3 p.m. So you'll want to find out what she's learned about Van Gogh. All right. Now, let's talk about a couple other things. First off, PleinAir magazine, which I mentioned, now in 278 Michaels stores. And what I'm learning is that a lot of people are going into Michaels stores in some of the markets that don't have it. And they are, they're walking away because they don't have it. What you need to do is to ask the manager, not just the cashier, but the manager, say, would you get this magazine in? Because we know it's in other Michaels stores. That'd be helpful. We also are the #1 selling art magazine in America, nationwide at Barnes & Noble. And so we're very proud of that. That's PleinAir magazine. All right. Now, today we are giving away some prizes. Let's see what we've got here. Today, we're giving away a PleinAir apron, and the winner is Stephanie Bertzman from Pennsylvania. I don't know if that's a typo or it's spelled that way, but you're getting one of these, the PleinAir apron. Mine just happens to be a little bit messy. I sometimes forget. My wife always says you've got 2 kinds of clothes, those with paint on it and those that haven't got paint on it yet. So I'm trying to be more judicious and wear my apron. And this one is nice, soft material. It's got deep pockets. And one thing about most aprons is they're not adjustable. This one, you can adjust the straps. Anyway, that's the PleinAir magazine apron, and it's going to Stephanie Bertzman from Pennsylvania. So congratulations, thumbs up and applause to Stephanie. Okay. Now, also tomorrow, from your comments, I will be giving away a pair of value specs. I don't have any to show you. I was just over at the studio and I took a whole bunch of them over there and I forgot to bring them back. So I'll have to bring them in tomorrow. But value specs are glasses. It's a certain color of red lens so that you can see the values, what we think is perfectly. We had to go through lots of different iterations of color. I first went out and I started buying all the red glasses I could find, pink glasses, red glasses, green glasses. Nothing worked. And then, so we worked with some people at the manufacturer and they kept changing and adjusting and getting it right because we wanted the values to be spot on. So when you put these on, you can see the grayscale. Now everything is in red, but you're seeing it reduced down to grayscale. So you can immediately see, oh, my mountain is too dark, or my mountain is too light, or my figure is too light, or so there's different ways that you can see. So the way to win that is just to leave a comment. And we like it when you say where you're from. If you're from outside of the US, we like to see that too, but we like to see where you're from. Just see where you're tuning in from. We have new people tuning in every day from all over the world, and we want to get to know you. We are a big family of artists, and we just love to talk about art. And some of you are artists. Some of you are considering being artists. Some of you are exploring it. And we're all just here together, and you'll be able to meet and communicate on this broadcast with artists from all over the world. And we hope you do communicate and get into the comments. And so we will randomly grab somebody from the comments and give them a pair of value specs for tomorrow. Now, tomorrow, in just a few days, on the 31st, the $15,000 PleinAir Salon monthly competition ends. This is, you saw Dave earlier, this is what he won the annual competition. How it works is you enter monthly. You get, if you win in any category, you're going to get some benefit, some publicity, and in the first 3 categories, some cash. But also you are then entered into the national competition, and then we award it at the end of the year at the PleinAir convention. The one we did virtually is because we couldn't do the PleinAir convention. So anyway, make sure you get your paintings entered. They don't have to be fresh. We don't think that that's a needed requirement. We want the best paintings you've ever done to be entered. And so enter yours. We have several categories. They're not just plein air. We have landscape, we have figure, we have still life. We have many with 20 different categories, I think. So enter at PleinAirSalon.com, and there's a chance there's about 28, 30, 33,000, I think 33,000 in total cash prizes. And that's, by the way, that's all cash. It's not made up stuff. All right. So, all right. I've got a lot to talk about today because it's just kind of a busy day. Well, the next thing I want to talk about is where I got to find it here. I'm sorry. The other night during Realism Live, Saturday night at 9 p.m., we went live so everyone could see it. And we had our first annual artist and selfie competition, the goal of getting people to do self-portraits, paintings of other artists, paintings of artists in plein air, paintings of historic artists, and paintings of art studios. And we want this because we think there should be an art history in paintings of what you're doing. And so we did the awards. We showed all the finalists. And I'm going to show now the ones who won in different categories. There were several winners. The first category was the Artist Choice Award. And of course, artists could promote this and get people to vote for them. So the winner of the Artist Choice Award was, wow, the name's not on there. It says Sibylline. Yeah, okay. So the second one, the best selfie of an artist was Jen Brown. The best historic painting of an artist was Gabriela Gonzalez Deloso. The best painting of a living artist was by William Suss. The best painting of an artist painting in plein air, Jove Wang. The best artist studio painting, Alessandra Mercucci, and she was on from Italy. The second place overall winner was Crystal Brown, and the first place winner was Ernest Wood, and Ernest is going to have that painting on the cover of Fine Art Connoisseur magazine, and it's a $16,000 award value for that. So we will get the next artist and selfie competition going here soon, so that we can award it at next November's FACE conference, the Figurative Art Convention and Expo in November of 21. Hopefully we'll all be able to go by then. And that will be in Williamsburg, Virginia. We're repeating Williamsburg because we originally were moving to Baltimore, but because of COVID, complicated. Anyway, we got it under control now. Okay, now I also want to mention that we had last week for 5 days. The first day was beginner day, and then 4 days in a row of Realism Live. We had some of the world's top instructors on Realism Live, and it was just a blow you away moment. I mean, we had so much fun. I hosted it with Peter Trippi, and as a matter of fact, Peter and I, on the last night, Peter's got his costume on. He decided to go full out Halloween, so he did his Napoleon costume. You can see I'm wearing my TV host costume. We had people interacting. We had chat rooms. We had evening painting together, a cocktail party. We had lots of people. We had thousands, literally thousands. And so that, just a lot of little moments that were just a lot of fun. Here's Graydon Parrish. He stayed all day and worked on this Bouguereau painting copy. And he's just doing the, initial underpainting on that. And this is fairly early stage, but he made a lot of progress. We checked in with him all day, and it was fun to do that. We had dancers, and we had a lot of fun with the dancers and their Halloween costumes. And we even brought Bob Ross back from heaven for a brief painting demo. And we'll see if we can get a hold of that and get it out on social media soon. It was a lot of fun. So anyway, let's get now to Dave Santillanes. I just want to show you a couple of things before we pull him back in. First off, this is the slide from his first place image when he won the PleinAir Salon. Here's some of the, this is the full image. And then I'm just going to show you a few of his images, some of his paintings, so you can get a feel for what he paints. Absolutely stunning work. And here's a snow scene. Wow, just unbelievable. I can feel the cold of that snow. Let's see. That's beautiful. A couple more. Wow. He's good at everything. Look at that waterfall. Snowy waterfall. And look at that. It's just beautiful. All right. So now let's go back to the man himself. All right, Dave.
Thanks.
All right. So I'm going to just, whenever you're ready, I'm going to trigger your other camera. I'll read comments from time to time from people, or possibly tell you where people are watching from, or insert some questions.
Oh, that's great. That's perfect.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna put your big camera on screen, and I'm gonna pull myself and you off. Here we go.
All right. Sounds good. And as I explained a little bit earlier, what I'm doing is I'm taking a PleinAir study and doing a studio study from that. And so I have a PleinAir study. I have photographs of the scene, and I halfway joke in my workshops that when I'm painting outdoors, composition, while it's there, it's not the most important thing for me. But in the studio, it becomes the most important thing. So that's what this studio study is about. It's about kind of fleshing out that composition. Where do I want to put things? And my idea behind composing is I'm coming up with a composition irreverent to what the scene is. So my composition is how I want things to be. The scene might not have things where I want them to be, but as artists, we have that license to kind of shift things around to develop a composed painting. So don't tell anyone I move things around, but that's what I do in the studio. I'll reposition trees and lakes and shift the angle of a creek. And to be quite honest, no one really knows that non-artists look at a scene very differently than artists do. And I think as artists, if we change the angle of a creek, we're really the only ones that know that we did that. So if it helps the composition, I say go for it.
Okay.
And just to kind of describe where I'm at here. So I sort of started a little bit this morning painting on this. Basically what I have is atmospheric detail and no other detail. I'm not really interested in linear detail at this point. I used to paint by completely drawing in the scene and filling it in, more of a paint by numbers. And it was so restrictive, and the paintings had really no passion in them at all. So I really don't draw at all. But this early stage is about big shape placement all the way through. And it's about developing atmosphere right from the beginning. So the way I do that is paint shadows. I'm a shadow painter early. This is one big shadow of a mountain in the distance. This is another layer, slightly warmer, slightly darker than this shadow. So I'm comparing shadows to shadows all the way through the landscape. And by the end, you should have kind of a feeling of atmosphere. And if you don't, you adjust those temperature, color temperature relationships, value relationships, and chroma relationships all the way through until you do start to feel atmosphere. So once I get those shadow shapes all the way through, I'm ready to really start painting. I have the architectural holdings of the entire scene, really ready to go, ready to accept that next layer of building on it. So I'm going to jump right in and start with some highlight information on these background mountains, and then just work my way forward. So, and to do that, first I'm going to kind of solidify, because I came in pretty quickly through here. I would say this first bit of information, putting it down, probably took between 15 and 20 minutes, because you can work fast. There's no detail. It's just big shapes. But in working really quickly like that, invariably I leave, some canvas, which can be problematic in judging different values. So I'm just going to come in and solidify this really quickly. And then once that's solidified, then I mix that next mixture, which is going to, you know, to create the feeling of light on this background mountain. Light just has to be warmer and lighter than the shadow. And thinking of it that way really helps as far as not getting it too warm. Our tendency is to see light on a distant mountain as orange or yellow. And I always caution students, if you want to create atmosphere, you have to kind of rein that in a little bit. Now I'm just designing. I'm not really trying to paint with an exactness the light that was actually there that day. I want this to just be a nice design leading back through. Seeing that snow scene, we just got 17 inches of snow here.
Oh, lovely. What one question, what are you using for a support? Are you on a masonite board, a panel? What is it?
It's an MDF panel. I use MDF. I prime it with just a household primer sealer like Kills or Bin. But to create a barrier between the primer and the MDF, I use acid-free glue like Lineco. So that creates kind of a barrier, and then I put the primer sealer right on top of that.
Okay.
So now I'm moving forward one layer of atmosphere, and it's slightly warmer. This highlight is slightly warmer than that highlight, and that in effect is helping me move forward in this landscape. And it's a little bit warm for right there, which is crazy to say, because if you look at that color, it's just a warm gray. But in context with all these cool notes, that warm gray feels quite warm. Now that warm gray up here in the foreground wouldn't have that same feeling.
I think one thing that people often get sucked into is putting too much detail in the distance. And you know, when you really think about it, if you can get just a big shape in there with a little bit of variety in the brush stroke and so on, and then lay in your highlights on top, it just all comes together very easily and quickly.
Yeah, exactly. And I think having, you know, it speaks to atmosphere as well. If you have so much detail in the background, you have to, just to create that feeling of atmosphere, put twice as much detail in the foreground. And sometimes you run out of the ability to have that much detail. Now I'm creating these tree shapes. And again, I'm, you know, as Eric was mentioning, I'm not looking for detail right now. I'm looking for color information. I'll have plenty of time to, if I want to nuance these trees even more, I can go back in. Now this kind of gray green is playing as a much warmer green next to this cooler grayed out blue green, and it's actually closer to a neutral gray. But just that subtle shift from a cool gray green to a much lighter, warmer green creates that feeling of light and shadow. And if I need a little bit more chroma, I can add that in too, to create some of those subtle nuances. but it's all about color relationships. And I feel, you know, the ability to move fairly quickly through this because it's okay that it's not detailed yet. I often consider this the blob phase of the painting, where it's just, you know, these big blobs of color information. They don't have to be the color of trees. It's just the color of a shape back there, and it helps me design too when I'm not seeing things as trees and mountains and lakes. It helps me design because it's just a shape and more shapes. Now this pass through will be pretty quick because, you know, I want to get all this color information. The other thing worth mentioning too is when you are in blob phase, it's okay to make changes because there's not a lot of color information down. So you haven't over-rendered an area, so it makes it very easy to make adjustments.
Dave, can you talk about making greens? Because this is one that everybody struggles with, or a lot of people struggle with.
Yeah, in my workshops, I always say the key to painting green is to not use green. I mean, and part of that is if you can get by with using gray back here, like this is essentially a gray, but it's a warm gray next to a cool gray, and it almost feels green just based on that relationship. So if you can get by in the background without using green, and then by the time you get to the foreground, you get to use pure green and cad yellow, that's going to make these background grays feel green without using green. And that's how you get green in atmosphere. I think the biggest struggle with painting green is we see green back here and we use green, and then we have green back here and green, and you just have layer upon layer of green and nothing reads atmospherically. You know, it's the exact same issue as painting reds in Sedona. If you use red in the background, you run out of that ability to use it in the foreground as far as if you want atmosphere. Yeah, and that's why greens are the most difficult, because it seems to fly in the face of what we see as reality. I mean, it's hard to talk someone out of, well, you know, I know those trees are green back there. So why?
Well, sometimes, you know, you have to. One thing I learned from another artist was that sometimes you have to push things back further than you feel comfortable pushing them back, and because they might be reading a little too close, and then when you get the painting together, you don't have this variation in values.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, you know, oftentimes I think I'm pushing it, and then by the end of the painting, it feels right on. And I think, well, it's a good thing I did think I was pushing it, because if I hadn't done that, it wouldn't look right at all. Bringing a few cool notes in there. And that's another thing. Once you figure out how atmosphere works, then you're free to do that. If you want to push something back for the sake of the painting, it's just a matter of cooling that shadow, graying that shadow, taking some chroma out of it. So, and I'll do that sometimes too for the sake of the painting. I'll create more atmosphere than may have been there. So you can see I'm working my way through relatively quickly with the light information or the highlight information.
There's a question from Lynn who says, can you explain how you're using, well, it just moved. Hang on a second. Can you explain how you're using, oh my goodness, it keeps moving. I'm sorry. How you're using the word atmosphere related to your paintings? Is it like mood or feeling?
For me, atmosphere is atmospheric perspective. So, but it can mean both. Because a lot of times I'll paint a scene in it, in essence, it's about atmosphere. So the mood is about atmosphere, but usually when I'm speaking about it, it's about the layers of atmosphere.
Meaning, so for those who don't know the term atmospheric perspective, which a lot of people wouldn't know, is it's assume that there are like layers of glass that's frosted at a different level, kind of like the atmosphere of the air, and that there's one layer between that first distant view and a second layer between that second distant view and a third layer behind that third distant view. So when you're creating atmospheric perspective, things get bluer, get grayer, the brightness of the chroma does not stand out as much, and so you're creating the sense of distance. That's what atmospheric perspective means.
Yeah, and you can also create it with line, but I think in more of an impressionistic vein, it's with color temperature and the shadows and value of the shadows and all of that.
Yeah. The other question is that this person says they're not seeing gray, they're seeing green. And can you touch on the fact that there are variations of gray?
Yeah. And that's a great point, because if, I've succeeded in that sense. If I'm making gray feel green, that's perfect. But what I'll do is I'll pull out a real green here. In fact, it was kind of my next step. So I'm mixing a green, and I don't know if you can see that. A lot of things get lost in translation with the video, but if you can see how pure this green is compared to how muddy gray these are, it's got to be a different language describing this green versus this green. And unfortunately, in the language we use, we call everything that we think is green, green. You'd never walk up on this scene and say, oh, look at those beautiful muddy gray trees back there. We see them as green. But then when we actually see a pure green, and I'm going to put this down, when we see a pure green, then we're like, oh, okay, that is green. Let me actually make this a little bit. So these are greens that I'm putting in now. And this is obviously the light hitting these trees. And I'm going to need a bit bigger brush. I get lazy about cleaning my brushes when I paint.
You have people watching from Brazil, from India, from Russia, and from Louisville.
Oh, wow.
No, lots of people all over the US and Canada. I'm kind of looking around to see where we've got some distant people.
All back here to little old Wellington, Colorado. Buried under 17 inches of snow, which is great because we've had fires here.
Oh, well, so did the snow help put the fires out?
It definitely tamped them down to where they can actually fight them now. But it's been, I grew up here in Colorado. This is the worst I've ever seen.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So now hopefully you can see what green is, and that there is a difference between this highlight and this highlight. And so you see the light family follows the same principle as the shadow, that it's going to get more chroma coming forward, warmer, more intense, all of those things. Now I want to fill in. I've got a little blank here.
Got about 15 minutes, just so you're aware.
Okay. Well, we got through quite a bit here.
Yeah. Yeah, by the way, don't be afraid to use a paper towel, everybody. It's a great tool.
Yeah. The way I paint too, it's more, I think of it as more sculptural. I'm kind of molding things. If I want to move this shape, it's easy to do, with a paper towel, and, I call it my eraser. You can move things and, just sculpt the design.
Paul says, Dave's a very good teacher. In 10 minutes, he has already explained what others do not explain in an hour.
Well, thanks. That's great to hear. I say I'm mostly self-taught, but that comes with a lot of learning from others, if that makes any sense. No one who's self-taught hasn't opened up a book and read as much as they can about this stuff. But I think ultimately it just comes down to doing it. But just getting back to what that gentleman mentioned, I think my teaching comes from making tons of mistakes and figuring out ways to correct them. And everything that every mistake I've made comes out in teaching. So my students benefit from me not being a very good painter when I started.
Well, nobody is, really.
Okay, now I'm going to...
The one thing that people fail to remember or know is they think that they're going to be a great painter out of the box because there's some form of natural talent. It just takes time.
Yeah.
And you got to paint a lot of turkeys before you get a peacock.
Yeah, and I think painting in general is so much more involved. I grew up drawing and, was pretty adept at pencil drawing. And it was such a huge change painting. It was a different way of thinking. I'm just solidifying this shape a little bit. It's a different way of thinking. And one thing I explain too, and I had to learn this as well, is drawing with a brush is so different than drawing with a pencil. With a pencil, we're drawing lines, drawing around the shape. With a paintbrush, we're creating line where two shapes meet. That becomes a line. With a pencil, we just draw the line. So learning that aspect of painting for me was huge, because it is a 180-degree different approach than drawing. And then it allowed me to just start drawing with my paintbrush. I'm gonna come in. There's some fall colors starting to show through on this one tree. So let's see if I might just use pure cadmium, and we'll just see how intense that gets. I always love when I have to mute a color versus add more chroma, because sometimes we don't have enough chroma to add. But to me, using the pure cadmium colors is the fun part of the painting. But the only way they work is if we set it up with all these grays in the background. The grays allow us to have fun in the foreground.
Can you also speak to the idea that if you have a lot of chroma everywhere, your eye doesn't know where to go?
Yeah, and I think it also speaks to that idea of color relationships. I can't remember what artist said this, but if everyone's shouting, no one's heard. If you have high chroma, cad yellows all the way back here, these suddenly lose their impact. They no longer say foreground cad yellow. They just get lost amongst all the other, high chroma colors. And it flattens atmosphere. It does all these things that we essentially don't want it to. I'm going to change the design here a little bit. Kind of like this big shape, sort of as a triangle leading through. It's called design on the fly, but it's what we do outdoors anyway. You kind of design as you see fit. Now, once I get this shape kind of covered in, I think I've got about 10 minutes. Then we'll
you're about 9 minutes.
Oh, okay. Plenty of time.
Plenty of time to finish a painting. Ha!
I just want to get this one shape. Painting outdoors, if nothing else, teaches you to paint quickly because you're fighting all these elements. And it's really taught me how to paint in the studio as well. Now, hopefully, there's some rabbit brush in the foreground here, and I just want to. Sometimes I'll just check if I've made a mistake somewhere and I ran out of chroma. Sometimes it helps just to hold up, a palette knife with pure paint from the tube, and just see, if you've left enough room for chroma in the foreground. And what I mean by that is, have you laid in the grays correctly to allow for those foreground colors to really speak?
You guys enjoying this? Oh man, positive comments. Everybody's loving it.
Oh, that's great.
Linda says, I'm learning more than ever.
That's great. Me too.
Dave, I think we better do a video.
That sounds perfect. Yeah, I like to show my palette. Obviously, that wasn't possible today, but I like to show the palette because even how I set up my palette with mixing color, you can see the layers of atmosphere on the palette. Because I've learned with outdoor painting that if I don't organize my palette, if my palette gets to chaos, my painting ends up being chaos. So I've learned a lot of ways to organize my palette as I go. Now the foreground too it's all about color. We've gone through great pains to set up pure color in the foreground, and invariably I'll get students in a workshop who set up these beautiful grays in the background and then set up more grays in the foreground, where you can start getting pure cadmium color straight from the tube in the foreground. And the more color, the better. And obviously there will be some grays in the foreground, but but the foregrounds are full of color information, as opposed to the background where you get two colors back here that say everything you need to in the background.
Yep. So we're going to have to wrap up here.
All
Dave.
right.
Why don't we bring you back on camera? I'll take that one out.
Great.
All right. So terrific. So maybe you can scoot over so we can see your face. I'm not even got that big boom in your way.
Okay, I'm going to get that out of the way.
Hey, Dave, thank you for this. Our time went by very quickly, but you did a phenomenal job, and you taught us 2 hours worth in 40 minutes. So that was terrific.
Well, that's great. Well, thanks for having me. This has been a joy.
Thank you, and congratulations again on winning the PleinAir Salon.
Thanks so much.
We'll see you soon.
All right, take care.
So you've been watching Dave Santillanes, who just has been announced the winner of the PleinAir Salon art competition, the annual. He got a big $15,000 check, and we love doing that. We love helping people and giving away money. So a couple of things I'm going to tell you. First off, we have a new thing that we have announced, and a lot of people signed up this week after Realism Live. I don't actually know how many, but I kept hearing people tell me that they signed up. And that is, we have an event called Watercolor Live, which is coming up in January. And a lot of oil painters have signed up for it because they also are looking for some things they can take on the road a little bit more comfortably. We have some of the greatest masters in watercolor alive who are going to be there. It's January 28th through 30th. With a beginner day on January 27th. Let me go quickly through the faculty. This is not in any particular order, but Linda Daly Baker, Agnes McEwen, I think he's from Ireland, Michael Holter, Kim Minciello, I'm having trouble with that name, Brenda Swenson, Gene Peterson, John Salomon. These are major players. The biggest, most important, most well-known watercolorist in the world, Joseph Zbukvich from Australia. Keiko Tanabe. By the way, I'm going to have Joseph on the show soon. Keiko Tanabe. Lauren McCracken. Look, can you imagine? Look at that tin foil. How do you do that with watercolor? How do you do it with anything? I think I could learn about oil painting from that one. Mario Robinson. Matthew Bird. Pablo Rubin. Suni Warren, Stephen Yang, Thomas Schaller, probably one of America's greatest, Andy Evenson, another, and last but not least, Daniel Marshall, with more to be announced. And it's just going to be incredible. 4 days of content, and you sign up at watercolorlive.com. All right. Well, let's see. I think, what else do I have today? Well, I just wanted to say to you guys that yesterday I wrote something. I do a blog every week. It's Oops, I hit a button and it took me offline. I'm sorry. I do a blog every week called Sunday Coffee. You go to coffeewitheric.com. I was talking about your mindset during this particular period of time, especially related to election. I don't get political, but you might want to go and read that one for the first time if you've never read it. It's go to coffeewitheric.com. This is a time when, the world's crazy, lockdown, concerns. You may still be locked down. You may be concerned about going back in. You've got the election going on. You got a lot of crazy stuff going on. And it's very important that you keep your head in the game. That's why I'm here every day. I've decided not to do weekends anymore because I finally needed a break. But I did 213 days in a row before we went to weekends off. And I want to make sure that you're staying positive and upbeat. We are artists. We hold special gifts, and we need to preserve those gifts. We are creators, and most people are not creators. We are creators, and because these gifts that we hold are so important to the rest of the world, we have to protect ourselves. We have to shield ourselves. We have to surround ourselves with beauty. And if we're focusing on negativity and on election vitriol and all the negativity on social media and all the mudslinging and all the bad stuff, we're going to bring ourselves down, and we're not going to be able to create. I had one woman tell me that she was so down, she just couldn't create. She stopped painting. And she said she started watching this every day and it got her inspired. Then she watched Realism Live and it got her totally inspired. She said, I'm painting again. And that's what we want. You know, those of you who are new to this, we want you to learn or start painting if you think it's appealing. We're trying to give you lessons every day at 3 p.m. and giving you something on this daily at 12 noon. So keep yourself positive, protect yourself, get your exercise, eat well, but keep your head from getting polluted. You know, it's real easy to get caught up in this. You know, the reality is that 50% of you or 50% of us, whatever, we're not going to get our way. And so we have to just understand that the world's not going to come to an end no matter what. We gotta trust, and we got to know that we've got to take care of ourselves no matter what. Because if you're not strong, if you're not healthy, if you're not mentally healthy, you're not going to get through this. Suicide rates are up 600%. We're not going to let that happen to us. We want to make sure that we stay positive. And so please heed my advice. Stay positive. Do not overconsume. I know people who are just watching the news 24 hours a day. They're online all the time, and they've become these negative, overly consumed people. We don't want that for you. So stay positive, stay upbeat, and protect yourself. I'm Eric Rhoads, and thank you for watching day 215. I will see you tomorrow at 12 noon, same time, same place, Facebook and YouTube and other places. And please forward this to your friends. They might need it too.